As part of our Connect Veracore plugin, we will allow you to sync customers from Veracore into Infigo. Unfortunately, at the time of development, this was not possible via the API, so we had to utilize Veracore's datasheet exports to achieve this. A couple of prerequisites to consider before we start. If you require customers to be put into departments and have controlled access permissions to certain products on the site, then these need to be set up prior to the import. And more information on setting up departments and access permissions can be found on other tutorials and in our help center. So what we need to do first is to make sure that our departments are mapped to Veracore's category access groups name using our Infigo Connect link buttons. And this is how they will be identified during the customer import. So we achieve this by first going to the departments area of our Infigo admin. We can create or locate a department, and then we're going to come over to this Connect link icon here. We connect the plugin that we want to utilize, which in this case is Connect Veracore. And then the external ID is our Veracore category access group name. Each department must be mapped to a Veracore category access group. If we then navigate back to our configuration settings for the Connect Veracore plugin and go to the Customer Sync section. Now, what you may find, which hasn't happened in my particular scenario, is that you get a message here saying that usernames need to be enabled on the storefront before you can utilize this functionality. And this will come up as a red warning box here. This is easy to configure. We just need to go to the customer settings. And then within the customer settings is the option to enable the usernames option. So check usernames enabled and then click on save. So we must have an upload location where Infigo Sync will look for the CSV files with a name that matches a specified naming convention. Now this is done in exactly the same way as we saw with the product categorization. So if we navigate to our upload folders section within Infigo, all we're essentially doing here is creating an empty folder that we can add things to at a later time. So I'll add new upload location. And I'm just adding a few bits of relevant information to be able to identify what this folder is going to do. So I'll call this Customer Sync. Make sure that's active. Click on Insert. And as we saw with the category sync, if we click on Manage, it takes us to an empty folder structure where it's awaiting files to manually or automatically be uploaded to that location. If we are looking to automatically upload things here, then we need to link it to some action. And in this case, we're going to link it to a couple of the options that are available in our Veracore configuration settings. So if I go back to those Veracore configuration settings, make sure I'm on the Sync Customers via Datasheet section, and we'll start working our way through these options. So starting off with the upload location name, this is the upload location where Infigo Sync will look for the CSV files with a name that matches the naming convention specified in the option below it. So this is looking in those upload folders that we just created. So if I click on this drop down, you see I've got those two options, same as we had in the upload folders, and I can select the one I want to utilize. Now you can see I've pre-populated something here already. This section is expecting us to input a CSV file naming convention. So this is a file naming convention which should be files with a .csv file extension only. And the search string here is to match against names of the files that we're trying to import. Now this parameter can contain a combination of valid literal path and wildcard characters. So by wildcard characters, it might be an asterisk, as you see here, or a question mark, for example, but it doesn't support regular expressions. So you can see there an example of what this may be populated with for your particular configuration. Option down from here is password set logic. So you see we have a few different options in there controlling how the password is created. So we start off with password to username. That sets the password as the value passed in the username itself. Password to hard-coded value. So you'll see if we click on this, we have this hard-coded password down at the bottom. So the password will just be set to what's typed in here. And then password to name and last name with logic. So if a first name or a last name is not set, then it's fallbacks to the hard-coded password. If the first name and last name are set for the particular customer, then the password will be first name, first initial, last name, and then it will remove any spaces or special characters. So for example, you can see down here, we've got an example of somebody's name, and then the resulting generated password would be this. So in the first initial, and then the last name with any special characters or spaces removed. Once these configuration steps are completed, the import process can begin. So we need to download the pre-registered user's datasheet from Veracore itself. This can potentially be scheduled from within Veracore to be done automatically. Just ensure that the report contains the same important columns in the same locations as seen on this table here. So we'll see that in column A, we're expecting the customer ID. And then in column W, we're expecting the category access group. So this is the group the customer is part of in Veracore that controls visibility and access. And its corresponding Infigo property is department and department external ID. Once that file has been created, we place the file into a pre-agreed directory on the local machine. And then if we do that in conjunction with Infigo Sync, which again can be found in different tutorials and different articles, that will then automatically pick up that file and import it into your Infigo platform without you having to interact with it at all. Now, you can, of course, just decide to import it manually if you wish to do so, and if you want to control when this happens. So to import this manually, we just go back to our manage upload locations or upload folders that we created. Click on manage on the required folder, and then just directly upload the file into here. So there's no need to go through Infigo Sync to automate the process if you don't really want to. The Infigo system will then iterate through the CSV, looking for any existing customers whose Infigo external IDs match the Veracore IDs. If we do not find a match, we will create a new customer using the information that's provided. When it finds a match, it will check the category access group name and then check the storefront for a matching department name or external ID. When it finds a match, it will ensure that a user is assigned to that particular department. So just as a final thought on this, back to our table, we're requiring the customer ID and the category access group. The corresponding Infigo properties are the customer external ID. And just as a point of note of where we can find that, if I go to our customers section, connect link, and then we've got the external ID for that particular customer. In a similar vein to that, we're also looking for category access group, which the corresponding Infigo properties are the department name and the department external ID, which we did show earlier on in the video. So if I go to departments, we have our department name, and then our external ID is done within the connect link.